Hi, good morning, everyone. It's Michelle from Silverson's Realty. Today, I would like to speak about due diligence and specifically in relation to real estate. Even though it is a buyer beware state in New York, it's very important for the buyer to be very educated about the property he or she or they are buying. And it's really incumbent upon the agent, the realtor, to do his or her due diligence to facilitate the transaction and to confirm that everything related to that specific property is in fact correct, such as the permitted uses for the property. It's very important for the buyer to understand what the uses are. We understand it's a single family house, but they should know the zoning related to that home. In addition, part of our due diligence, when I do it, whether I represent the buyer or the seller, I check all the information at the building department. Are all the certificate of occupancies or compliance in effect? Are all the permits that were taken out on the property closed? Or maybe permits should have been taken out regarding, for instance, a deck and were not taken out and were not filed for. These are very important aspects of your due diligence to make sure all the permits or all the renovations that were done on the property have been properly filed for. You also want to make sure that if a deck has been built, is it within the setbacks, or does it go beyond the setbacks and, for instance, too close to the property line or too close to the property within the front of the property. It's very important to know that. In addition, we always want to verify the taxes. Often taxes are misrepresented or incorrect or not up to date on a listing, especially if a listing has been on the market a while. You really need to always update and verify your taxes as well as assessment. And a good point related to that would be to check to see if the property is over assessed, meaning maybe the taxes can be grieved and brought down depending on when the taxes are grieved in the community. But really, you should always verify the taxes and check market value on a property. Also, looking at a survey is critical. Always ask for a survey. Possibly there's one in the building department, but if there isn't, always ask the owner. Possibly they refinanced or they did work to the house, and always ask if there's a survey. A survey is critical because you want to make sure that there are no easements on the property, especially if somebody wants to build on a property or if they want to do an extension or add a pool. You want to make sure that there are no utility easements that could affect that kind of work to the property, because one could not build a permanent structure, even a deck, for instance, over an easement. An easement is giving the right of way of a utility company, for instance, to access that property. The other due diligence that's really important, especially today, is the environmental. Although we are not engineers and we are not environmental experts, we want to get as much information about that property as possible, and whatever exists out there in the municipalities, we want to find. So, for instance, an underground storage tank or oil tank is very important. So if we can get information if one exists, then that's important for a buyer to know, because they may want to test the soil or test to see if the tank has been compromised. You also want to look at radon. Radon is important. It's obviously associated with lung cancer, and it's a test that typically is done in Westchester as part of your inspection. Not typical on Long Island because homes were built on sand. Although it's, I always suggest it, a radon test. It's not very expensive, and it just adds peace of mind to a purchaser's purchase. Asbestos is important. It's becoming it's an issue that one should look at and should understand. It's also related to cancer, and in many homes, it's either in a roof or exterior or in tiles, often found in the basement. Septic systems are important, and one should always check with the Department of Health in Westchester to see how many bedrooms are associated with that septic tank. So it's very important if your buyer wants to add on a house and the house has a septic tank or septic field, bedroom count may not be added to a house unless the Board of Health approves a new septic tank or a fields. Radon, I mentioned asbestos. Mold is another big issue. People really are concerned about mold and water penetration in a home. So these are all different parts of due diligence that a realtor should be doing, as well as ask for the lead disclosure, the property condition report, which a buyer is entitled to see prior to signing a contract. So that becomes very important, but one should not rely on just these disclosures. They should be further due diligence should be done. So you can see that with prices going up in Westchester and in other related areas, it's very important for an agent to do his or her due diligence, because buyers are very concerned about what they are buying and anything that could negatively impact their sale, and also could impact an appraisal. So this is very important. And one other point, I think it's important when you're bidding on a home, part of your due diligence should be looking at recent sales in that area, so a buyer should understand the values and how high they want to offer on that house. So if you have any questions, please give me a call, and I'm just touching on this. It's much more involved. Please call me at 914-906-4376. Have a wonderful day and nice Mother's Day.